time for another round of Brandy. Candid conversations over cocktails about all things brand. With your hosts, Reilly Newman and Scott Saunders, the brand developers behind Motif Brands.
Welcome back to another episode of Brandy. This topic I brought forward to Scott, and it's about the phases of brand. We've written about this before on Negative Space, if you're familiar with that, and we talk about the 3 phases of brand, which is know, like, love, and then we added in talking about when a customer owns the brand or has pride in it.
So are these is this like an evolving phase, or is it something that can recycle?
I would say it's more of like steps. You think of it stepping up little by little. When someone first hears about a business, they know about it, right? There's awareness, there's reputation. They might hear from a friend, and then only upon when they actually do engage with the business, then there's a possibility of them liking it. And then, then as they engage more and more, or it meets and exceeds their expectations, then they can love the business, love the brand. They start finding identity in it. They start really just connecting with it and resonating. And then as that relationship evolves, and like we talked about with like Disney and stuff, where there's this love for it and this love affair of this relationship, then they really start to own it and they start to become part of it.
Yeah. Makes me think of when a brand becomes an attachment to someone's lifestyle.
Yeah.
For classic example, how many cars that you see driving around, and sometimes on the back window you'll see a little white apple.
Yeah.
Because obviously they gave the stickers out, they had a product, and people, if they're a huge Apple fan, they throw that apple in their car. They advertise the brand, brands, especially like you look in fashion, where it's all about the brand, right? Yeah. And you start whole merch lines where it's just even just pushing the brand. So obviously there's that point in life when, or in the consumer's life, right, in their relationship with brands, where they go from love to
owning it.
Yeah, ownership.
And I think you think of like owning, it's like when you do own something, it's not, you're not dominating it, but you're part of it. You belong to something. And so just like someone putting the little Apple sticker on their, I don't know, their mug or their car or in some case or something, it's like they're showing belonging or kinship to something. So and then when someone else sees that and they might have that same relation, they go, oh yeah, me too, right? That relates to me. I connect with that. And then therefore I connect to that human who's already there. So they're finding that it's like the brand's enabling them to, their relationship with the brand enables them to then extend their relationships with other people they may not know by signaling that out. And so it gets a little bit confusing, but that's where I think, like you said, also with the recycling of it, is that I do feel like people can slip down in these stages too, of going from, oh yeah, man, I love that brand. And then something either happens or they just don't engage with it as much, or time passes and they drop down to and they might just drop down to oh yeah, I know about that. Like I used to buy that one. I used to buy that brand, but not anymore. Right.
So, I mean, clearly when we talk about the ownership, the 4th phase of ownership of a brand, clearly, that probably leans heavily on the true harnessed power of brand. Yeah. And we've talked about just the power of brand and what it can do. To me, obviously, that's the echelon level, right? When you've achieved that. But I think I wonder, is there power of brand found in even the first phase? In other words, because obviously we're the people that are tuning in either have an interest in brand, they're a small business, but generally speaking, I think someone's going to be at some phase.
Yep.
In there, if they have a brand, and if they have a business, they have a brand. The shape of that brand, the pulse of that brand, the wellness of that brand, the power of its brand, whatever little power or lots of power it has, they're in a phase somewhere. So if we've talked about these phases, so if I'm in the first phase, or let's say I'm in the second phase, I've got engagement with customers and they like it. Okay, so where's the power of my brand in that phase? And can you utilize the power of that specific level 2 phase, right? To then get my brand to level 3 and vice versa.
I feel like it's a sliding scale, is that someone could be in the no or the like, and they're trying to get to that next step of love. How do you make people love your brand, love your business? And to me, that is that relationship that's building little by little by little. And that is through the engagements, or like we talked about before, all those experiences of how, as someone experiences your brand and your business, it's like those are opportunities to increase that perception, because you're relating to them, you're being human to them, you're showing them the emotional side of your business by thinking about them, by being thoughtful and being empathetic. And that's what's going to help elevate it to that love. Or even just in those small little touch points of when you send them the product or you send them an invoice or anything like that, there's, some personality or something that relates to them, because then they're getting that relation. And I think actually a really good example of this is in politics. And on a very micro scale is that politicians go through this same phased steps. Is that first you hear about a politician, they're fresh on the scene, they might have been, in some junior level or something like that. Yeah. And then you see them starting to get their feet wet. They're getting on these different, platforms, speaking, and then they're trying to get you to like them as a person, right? So you're kind of researching them, you're learning about them, you're learning about their history, and then eventually they want to get to the point where you love them, where you trust them, because that's where it's like there starts to be that relationship of, oh yeah, I like this, I like him or her who's running for this thing. Look at they stand for the same values,
care about
as
the same
me.
things.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's where so then as you learn about them and they care about those same things, and you have that commonality, then that's that kinship, right? And that's where you're going to have, oh no, I'm going to stand up for him or her, no matter what they're running for, or they're getting attacked, because we're one and the same. They're speaking for me, right? And that's that ownership. That's that belonging to, hey, we're part of the same mind. We're part of the same tribe. Yeah. And as politicians they evolve much faster than your corporate brands, but I think they're a good example where you actually can see someone come onto the scene where you're like, who's this person? And then they just go right up to the top quickly.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting because I was thinking about the different phases, and I can see how in the cycle of brands, and this happens to many brands, where maybe they're the level 2, maybe they're the like level or love it level with the consumer, and they fall from grace. Oh, yeah. And they have to go back to phase 1, where they are like to get to know us, get to know me, brand, because I need to make up for lost traction. I need to re-engage, reinstill trust with the consumer. But is there cases where a level 4, brand has a fall from grace that would take them back to square one, or are they almost above reproach because they're so, in other words, hypothetical, right? Let's say it's diehard. Well, I brought up Apple before. I'll bring it up again. Let's say you've got your diehard Apple base, right? They're the first ones. Yeah, they're attending the Mac. Yeah, they're attending the Mac expos. They don't, wait for a year to buy the product because the price is going to drop down. They pre-order. It's all that. If Apple was to really screw up, in a big way, got a lot of bad press, right? Its stocks were dropping, everything. Would the diehards, in other words, that it's almost become bulletproof? We see that, we brought this up, but we see this in politicians nowadays. Yeah. I'm not going to name names. We've seen every generation has had its politicians on a national or local state level that have fallen under fire, have had bad press, whatever. And it seems more and more we live in a day and age, and particularly I think because of heightened social media and all that other stuff, but where politicians are becoming almost more bulletproof, to the small stuff. But our brands, our big brands that have massive lifestyle, Nike or whatever it is, right? If you're an athlete and you're just a diehard Nike, everything from the shorts to the socks, the shoes, everything, that brand is you. It screams you, or it's Adidas or whatever it is. If they fall from grace, are you going to completely change because they've fallen from grace? Or are you going to, if anything, stake further in the ground to support and defend them?
Unfortunately, I think that is some fallacies and heuristics that humans have, where when we are so far indebted to, let's say, Apple, or we're so in love with, Nike or something like that, that when they do something that's wrong, we will actually start to kind of justify it. And humans have done this all throughout history, and all in the political realm, and everything from Bernie Madoff to Adam Newman with WeWork, anything like that, where these guys are taking billions of dollars and then it's vanishing, and people are literally justifying their actions. And it's because there's so like the sunk cost fallacy of not only monetary investment, but also this is who I am I connect to this brand so much, my identity's in it. So therefore, if something's wrong with this brand, then there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. Well, I think of it like, and even like we talked about, business have brands and people have brands, you know? And so I think of celebrities. I mean, you look at like someone like Michael Jackson, or most currently Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
If something came out about Taylor Swift that they would almost refuse to believe, would cling dearly to that. And I think that's what's so interesting, is that even as a consumer, we can have brands that are like that just because of our obsession with them, our the personal brands of choice, whether it's the brand of car, whether it's your coffee, whether it's,
well, you could say about anything. Let's say like organic foods, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I only buy organic. This is the only thing I eat. I only eat organic. And then what if it came out that actually that was it was made up, that the organic standards, these companies were slipping by and it wasn't actually to organic standards. So you've been actually eating normal food this entire time. Someone would almost lose their mind thinking, no, that can't be true.
Yeah.
No, there's no way, because I've been buying organic and that's what I am. That's who I am, right? Because it starts to become this identity.
Yeah.
And not only, like the organic, for example, but if there was even with Apple or something like that, where it's like you have so much identity in something where the brand has, and this is like, again, the small portion of brands that make it to this level. It's incredibly rare, but it's like you get to this point of, you are part of that person's personal internal narrative where they go, oh yes, that brand, that is me, I am them. And that's what, even like you brought up Taylor Swift, I'm like, Taylor Swift's done that brilliantly, where she's connected with specifically a lot of women all across these different ages, and they all connect to her. And if you look at her albums, they're all speaking of these different challenges that she's faced, speaking of different circumstances, and all those things are emotional connections that people can relate to and actually go, oh yeah, I've felt that to some degree, right?
Yeah.
And so then each time that's compounding, and people are going, oh, I know about her. Oh man, I like her. I like her music.
Yeah.
And then, wow, I'm kind of like, I love how she like writes. I love her songs. And you start falling in love with this like kind of.
And you have people that were Taylor Swift fans years ago. That are older now and have young daughters, and they're following love. So it's becoming a generational experience to go, whether it's in a theater, whether it's at home on Disney Plus, or whether it was in live, to see her shows and to embrace her and all that.
So, and I think that's one of the things that, when you do talk to businesses who are just getting started, or maybe they've neglected their brand. They have a brand, but they've neglected it, and they're stuck in that level one of just like, people know about us, and we do have awareness, and there's reputation, because if you open up shop, you're going to have reputation, because you're going to have some people who come in and some people who don't, but you're going to start developing a reputation and awareness just naturally, just from having your doors open. And that's where I think businesses have to realize, like, hey, what's that next step to get to? How do I start getting that right? And that can be done through consistency and really just having better customer service and doing those more. It's expected, but it's a little above average. You're not just servicing them or giving them exactly what they need, but you're starting to go a little above the call of duty, and then getting to that third level of love and going, okay, how do I really take this up a notch? And that really does start tapping into the emotional side of brands. And that's like, even like what Taylor Swift, it's like when people when they make that jump from, oh, I like her music, or I like that business, or I like their food. It's like, that's great. It could be high quality and really well made or well written songs, but how do you get to that love? And that's all emotion. That's all just kind of in the irrational side of consumption.
Yeah. Yeah. It made me think of like, if you were to think of who your favorite authors are, all right, your top 2 or 3 favorite authors, if they were to write a book, and I've been in this place where one time I have a favorite contemporary author, and one of their books just I could not get into, and I finally freed myself up. It was a struggle to actually give up on the book and purposely not finish it, because I felt like I was yeah, I felt like not cheating on
Betraying.
I felt like I was betraying the brand or the author by not doing so. And it's so funny because when I caught myself doing it, I'm going, it's just a book.
Yeah, it's silly.
It's just a brand. We get so locked into things, and I think that's where, like, I'm a, you know me. You see my office, and I'm a huge into fandom. I just, whatever I love, whether it's Funko Pops or little statues or funky Prince posters, whatever it is, right? Band T-shirts, I whatever I'm into, I like to proudly proclaim and I immerse my life into it. I've got a vintage Star Wars coffee mug, whatever it is, right? There's fandom, and I think there's inner fandom in all of us. Whether it is whether you are a hunter, and Bass Pro Shop means more to you than the happiest place on earth, Disneyland.
No, it's a Bass Pro Shop.
That's your vibe, and that's cool, and that's you celebrating it through fandom of brands that embrace what is at a core important to you, what makes you tick, what brings you joy. So it's so easy to lean into those emotional connectors of fandom. So now the question is, as a brand, how do I harness the power of my brand to engage emotionally? If that's because what you're talking about, it from everything from know is knowledge, right? Comprehension. Yeah. I've seen a billboard. Okay, there's a business there. The plumbing. If I need a plumber, okay, I passed a billboard. Maybe that name will come back to me, right? Maybe it won't. Yeah. There's no, but then like, love, and the more ambiguous like adoption, right? Embracing lifestyle,
owning, belonging,
ownership. It's all emotion based. So how can a business analyze its customers, analyze its brand on the market, and throttle up the emotional factor in a real way that's actually going to connect? How do you go about even approaching it from a strategy standpoint or even analyzing? What do you analyze? I guess what I'm looking at is that, we're talking, we've been talking about Taylor Swift for 10 minutes. I'm trying to bring, I'm circling back around of like, okay, what's a tangible takeaway for someone that's going, look, yeah, I get it. I need to emotionally connect stronger. So how do you do that in an authentic way that's actually going to give you traction?
I think it's looking at who your customer and what they care about. Because then you start, again, like we always talk about, it's like empathy. It's like understanding, hey, where are they in their life? Again, like Taylor Swift. She's writing about these struggles.
Okay, 5 more minutes.
And
we'll talk 5 more minutes.
Just a little more Taylor Swift. And she's writing about these struggles and about these emotional instances. It's, someone hearing that, they're going to relate to that. So that's very empathetic. That's very going, hey, this is like, I hear you, I feel you, we're in the same boat. And then going from there, it's like, then that person is connecting. They're going, okay, I'm not alone. Oh yeah, this business, look at, they wrote this, or this one brand, I think it was last year or the year before, they did on Mother's Day, they sent out a specific email, because we all get bombarded with tons of Mother's Day, emails and campaigns, but they sent out a campaign that was specific for people who may not have a mother on Mother's Day. And they were seriously probably the first brand to ever do something that was like that self-aware of like, hey, I know this time could be hard for you, having to think about mom who's no longer here, da-da-da-da. Yeah. And I'm like, that was genius, because they're being empathetic to those people who've been neglected for who knows how long. And so having that empathy and actually getting in the shoes of your consumer and connecting with them in that way is a huge part of it, because, from that point, then they go, oh yeah, this person or this brand, they get me. They see me from my perspective. They understand me, and okay, I'll check out their stuff, or maybe I'll enjoy, shopping with them or whatever a little more, because their perception of the business has changed, because that brand is changing. What how they think of your business, aka your brand, that's evolving and changing. And I think then from there, it's like, as someone does fall more in love with the brand and they're connecting with it, it's becoming more a part of who they are. And then you start getting that consistency. And even like you're saying with like the book, it's like you had that almost that sense of betrayal, because you feel like you're letting the author down, or the brand of the author, because you're going, oh man, I'm failing them. I'm not supporting them in this way, right? And a huge part of humans is like, we love to be consistent. When we're inconsistent, we hate it. And so when we do something that's inconsistent, of like, man, I normally like these books, and now I'm not connecting with it, it's inconsistent for you to put that down. So now you're denying your own internal narrative. Because when you got that book, you go, man, I love this book.
I didn't like the M. Night movie.
You didn't like the last.
You're a huge fan, and another one drops like, I really didn't like it, and you feel like, oh
no, but I have to.
I'm worthless. I'm not worthy.
And that's what, and I feel that with like Christopher Nolan with his movies, where I'm like, if I go to a Christopher Nolan movie, I have to like it. But then that's like ridiculous because he can make something where I'm like, I didn't connect with that much. That wasn't his best one. But we have this need to be consistent, and so that really starts developing into that next bridge to ownership, right? Yeah. And to belonging. And when you think of ownership, it's not just a fact of owning it, but it's like owning responsibility for that. And I think that's what we talked about of you start owning, like you feel part of it and you're taking on that responsibility of like, no, I'm part of this movement. I'm part of this brand. And so then you do stick up for it. You do stand up for it. I think,
it's funny when I think back of like, okay, classic brand, like commercials, the ones like this, everyone filters and analyzes the Super Bowl commercials. And the ones to me that stand out the most are the ones that are I mean, obviously, yes, the funny ones are great, right? Everyone gets a big laugh, but it's more of, okay, that was fun entertainment, move on. The ones that stick around are the ones that really address something that actually probably had absolutely nothing to do with the brand itself. Example would be a guy that he's driving a car and he's got a young baby in the stroller, and then it's showing him later taking his daughter to soccer practice and then dropping her off at the prom, and then her driving away loaded up to go to college in the same car. And he's looking with longing and sadness and flashback as a parent and as a dad of two boys. Yeah. I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, dude, I totally feel it. And in the end, it's like, Volvo.
Yeah.
And you're like, the whole time it was a commercial for the car, though I learned nothing about the car's specifics, its fuel mileage, why it was good, why I should care. It didn't matter. What stuck in my mind was, oh, that Volvo commercial just got me. Yep. And secretly in the back of my mind, there's that idea that somehow I'm psychologically aligning Volvo in that they understand life. They understand me as a parent or as where I'm at. And who knows, next time I'm in the mood to buy a car, I might swing on by that Volvo dealership because you have that connection.
And actually it makes me think, that's an interesting point. It's like, it's almost the job of the brand before someone even loves the brand and before they have ownership or belonging to the brand. It's almost like up to the brand and the marketing to be signaling out and giving that nod to people going, hey, we see you, we get you, you belong here. And so then it's that signaling out, and then finally the consumer the ones who do resonate with that, they rise up to the top and they go, oh wow, that is the group for me. And you're signaling out to a certain audience, and then you're signaling to them, and then they're the ones who raise their hand and go, yeah, I do belong to that, and they come to you. So even like that, it's like, it's genius because Volvo is they're signaling out and going, hey, to those who we know how you feel. And then eventually sometimes those people might come around and be like, yeah, that brand gets me.
But it's interesting because I think when you talk about the first phase, you talked about putting out signals, brand signals. Well, the first phase is no. Well, that's typically more of a factual, logical.
That's just business.
Let's hit them up with our logo, our billboard, our advertisement, our whatever it is, like social media, right? Posting what we do and how we do it and why we do it and blah, blah, blah. It's knowledge.
Yeah.
It's not heart knowledge. It's not heart connectors. And so the idea maybe that I would even say if phase 2, 3, and 4 are clearly dependent on emotional connectors, strengthening those emotional connectors, getting them on the emotional hook needs to come in phase 1. Needs to come at that no phase. Get to know the brand or introduce the brand or reintroduce the brand.
Yeah.
And in that no phase is when you are getting the emotional feelers and the emotional hooks and snares to then reel in your consumer and the audience, because like you said, you want that emotional connection. So as they're getting to know the brand, to even like the brand.
Yeah, there's got to be.
And it may be that I would even go so far as that you focus more on the emotional connectors on the first phase. I could see you easily skipping phase 2. Going right from knowledge to initial experience and engagement to loving.
Yeah. It's like when you meet someone, you go, oh, hi, I'm John or I'm Sally, and you shake hands and you kind of chit chat, right? You first know, oh yeah, oh, what do you do for work? Oh, I
Right.
do this, da, 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 right? And you get to know each other, and then one might throw out a joke, or one might throw out a story, and then you go, oh my gosh, that happened to me too, right? And then the
Or,
conversation,
oh my gosh, you like this too?
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
And then
you're a Taylor Swift fan too?
And then it can quickly elevate to then it's like this. Oh my God, like we've all met people where it's like, man, that person feels like a brother or sister where they get me, right?
Yeah.
Or you have the same exact humor and you just connect. And so I think you put it in that context and it starts to make a lot of sense. And that's where it's like businesses, you don't handle it like business. Like it is emotional. It is human. It should be. And just kind of like we talked about the AI stuff in that AI episode. It's like it's not a matter of just being efficient as a business and doing transactions and all this and looking at them as customers. Like, no, look at them as human. Look at them as different people and individuals. And you yourself, you're trying to connect with them as a brand.
Yeah. This idea of think of your brand as a person, how it dresses, how it acts. If your brand's a person and you're going to enter a party where your audience, and you mentioned this before, it's about knowing who are you trying to be. And we use this term all the time. It's like when you're trying to be something to everyone, you're going to be something to no one.
Yeah.
Because you can't appeal to everyone. How many times in my career have I come across clients who have said, "Yeah, I want this logo," but it's like, okay, so who are you being? Well, I'm really trying to approach, the 18 to 60-year-old, both male and female, low income and high income. You're not going to appeal to anything. You've got to figure like who's that top tier that you feel like you could capture the most of the art. If it's males between 24 and 32. Or if it's females from 18 to, 27, high income or more medium income, right? You get very specific, and that's who you appeal to, and that's how you'll be more effective. But when you're trying to just throw out emotional connectors for your brand into the audience, but it's to everybody.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But in general, we're talking about speaking to an audience, and it's okay to let some people fall on deaf ears and for them to leave the room.
Yeah, or it might
because
just be boring
because you're not connecting with them. You need to be prepared for that as a brand, and you need to be okay with that.
Yeah. Or even just like you'll have younger audience who don't connect to that specific ad, right? Like the one you mentioned.
Yeah.
Of like,
Yeah.
They don't have kids. They don't know what that's like, right? They
Right.
have no idea what parenthood is like. So they're like, this commercial, they just
Right.
look on their phone and.
But they were hitting the people, the age
it.
group that's
Yeah.
probably, the
Who can actually afford the
50-year-olds
cars,
that
too.
many have now have adult children, and they get that cycle of life of. I remember when I was just the day I brought them home from the hospital, and now I'm dropping them off at college, and where'd the time go?
Yeah.
If that's their audience, that commercial hit it on the head.
Yeah. And it's kind of like what I think Dale Carnegie would say is like to be interesting, be interested. And by a brand doing that in your messaging, in your advertising, your campaigns, like showing interest in your specific audience. And like Scott said, if you're more specific about who you're selling to, then you can at least know, hey, what is this person? Where are they in their life? And then you can look at where they are on those steps of know, like, love, and belonging and ownership, and go, how do I kind of signal to them along the way and show that I'm interested in them as an individual, not that blanket, oh yeah, anyone from this age to this age, and a huge net.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think as we talk about, again, that framework of phases, I think being mindful that we talked on to rebrand or not to rebrand. That's a good time to, if you are doing a rebrand or a reface or if all the right checkboxes are yes, you should be doing a rebrand.
Yeah.
And repositioning your brand, being mindful of these phases and how to utilize them, or find out where are you on that scale, because it's not, again, you might find yourself, well, I'm kind of like a phase 2.5. I'm between like and some love, and it's, again, how can you, whether it's your messaging, whether it's the tone, by which you're reaching your audience. It's small little tweaks that can then make enough difference to, take you to that level 3, to the love it phase. It's so funny because as we talk about these phases, I cannot help but think of Cold Stone Creamery, who have, when you order your ice cream, the very cup sizes is not, oh, I want the small, medium, large. It's a like it size, the love it size, or gotta have it size,
so.
which is like the massive 2 scoop, And it's so funny because they position their cup size based on how much you're gonna love that ice cream that they're making for you.
Of quantity, it's a matter of.
And so it's hard for me not to think when I think of love it phase and the like it phase and love it phase of thinking of Cold Stone.
Yeah, and I think looking at each brand and going, where am I in that phase with my desired audience, and then how does that specific person, if you can't nail down specifics as to how to scoot them along those phases, then you're not being distinct enough in who you're targeting. And I feel like that's a really, really good signal of, okay, you either need to pivot or refine and reposition and really hone in on what is this, who is this specific person that we're trying to talk to? Because once you know that, then you know how you can connect with them further. And that's, I think, really the key to not only like we talked about in the rebranding episode, but also just with these phases of like growing as a business. Because again, if you're not moving forward on this, then you're moving backwards. If you're never just stagnant, you're either going forward or going backwards, and it's a lot harder to go forward than it is to just kind of slip into the abyss.
Yeah. What do you do? Like if you're a business that I'm just thinking of, what if there's a business that's just like, I haven't even gotten started. I'm not even in the phase 1. I'm ramping up here. Right. And I know there's no silver bullet. We don't work off script. We don't work off of like a template, like, oh, this is how you brand launch, and this is how you do this, and this is how you do that, because there's so many factors, so many questions to ask, and like we could talk about nuances of how you're going to reach out. But what are some ways someone can start to, because I mean, I would think of someone that's just starting going, gosh, I'm just working on a just getting my business started. I'm going to order fresh business cards. And I don't even know how to begin to emotionally connect. Or more importantly, maybe we keep going back to knowing your audience, and this is a whole nother podcast episode. So maybe I just want to scratch the surface as we're getting close to wrapping up here. But like, how do you find out if you're bringing a product to market? How do you know exactly who it is that you should be marketing to? And it's easy for us to go, well, know your audience or ask the right questions and all that stuff. But I feel like I know there's people out there that have approached us, right? That may not have been the right fit client wise, that we've tried to kind of like at least just console a little bit and try to, steer them off into the right direction for, okay, well, you're not quite ready for prime time, or you're just getting started, or you don't have the budget, or whatever it is, right? But for people that are starting out, it goes back to whether it's a service or product of them, who do they, I feel like a lot of times people start off by almost designing their business for themselves.
Yeah.
Or if they are the consumer, or they would be the consumer. For instance, I think of a lot of small businesses that start off where a guy's like, he's looking for something. Maybe it's a part. Let's say it's a part for a motorcycle. It's like, God, why I got to custom make this thing, right? And fabricate something on my own to make this. There's nothing on the market, right?
Yeah.
And he ends up figuring out a way to engineer something and actually maybe mass produce it. And through feedback, he's willing, man, there's a market for this. I could actually sell these. I could make a business. I could grow a brand with this.
Yeah.
And then you find that it's like, okay, so who's my audience? Well, anyone that would buy the part. Well, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Now it's like, if you would have bought the part, right? And you were the reason that you kind of created this thing, was because there was a need in the market, right? And that's why I feel like the businesses that are set up for success are when they find a need in the market that no one's filling.
Yeah.
And they found it almost as a consumer themselves.
Yep.
So that's a good starting point in those types of scenarios. I'd say your audience is yourself. Look in the mirror and go, what do I like? What is important to me? What do I value the most as a person? Then those are the things, the emotional connectors that people can harness, so that when they're launching a brand, they haven't even gotten to the no phase. They can start off on that foot of going, I'm going to talk to myself.
Yeah. And I feel like there's like two entrepreneurs, or almost like you said, that you got the inventor who they have an issue, they have a problem, and then they end up solving it on their own. And then they go, oh, wow. And then their buddies see it and go, wow, there's actually like I would buy that, right? And they kind of start, and there's breweries that have started off like that, where the guy starts brewing in his own garage, and then the buddies like it, and then it just kind of starts becoming its own thing, and it's kind of in this inventor entrepreneur realm. And then you have other entrepreneurs who they may see, a hole or a gap in a market, and they have that same skill set that serves that market, and then they go, wait, I can tailor it just a little for this specific need within it, which is still a need. Like it is problem solving in of itself, but it's not direct on a personal basis. But and then understanding, going, on the first part, it's easy to go, okay, it's me and my friends, we like this that I invented for this solution, and then on the second one is looking at, okay, who is that slice of the market that I'm trying to serve, and why are they having that pain? Because when you boil it down, a business is either like solving a pain point, or it's helping with an aspiration. And that's where it's like, what is the purpose of your business? Because then once you start identifying those, then you start getting in the head of the customer, going, okay, this person has this pain, they're dealing with this is keeping them up at night. How do I better solve it? How do I keep them? How do I help them feel better emotionally? Right? This is all emotional things. And then on the aspirational side, is it, okay, whatever, I'm an architect, or I'm an interior designer, I'm designing this space that this person wants. She wants it like this. She's always wanted this garden out here, or whatever it could be. And it's like you're getting in their head of what they're wanting and why they're desiring that. And you're able to specifically call those things out where they go, man, it's like you're reading my mind. And of course it depends if you're, service based or you're product based and all those variables. But I think that's always good, is when you look at, it's pain or aspiration, or like you said, it's like you either solved a problem that you were facing, and you're essentially the market. You just have to find, okay, what was that pain I was having? How did I solve that?
Yeah. No, that's good points. Good points. Well, I think we've covered phases pretty good. I think they're the emotional connectors of a brand. They are the levels, and they're what help truly gauge whether a brand is going to be long-term and sustaining and thriving, is if it's able to go through those natural phases with its audience, with its consumer, and think of it as a relationship. It's a love affair that we all have with brands, and which is one of the reasons why why we're in this industry. We love brands. We love the power of them, and crafting them to harness that power. Yeah. And so wherever you're at with your brand or your business, there's hope. There's areas of growth. And there's areas of renewal for you to connect on an emotional level, where your brand is self-sustaining in their minds. You can, when you get to the place where your brand has a legion of followers that allow the brand to go into new areas and maybe fail, but there's a safety net because of that legion of consumer audience base that's just, they're sold out on you.
Yeah, they're supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here's to Taylor Swift.
And on that note, thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will check you on the flip side for the next episode. And cheers.
Cheers.